Okay, now that's so funny. Alright, this stupid program sometimes it glitches out and um it's called OBS Studio. Sometimes it glitches out and it changes my mic input and then it doesn't work. So I have to check it now. That's going to be a thing that I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to check to make sure that my microphone's actually working. But anyways, I was just introducing the video before and I was talking about how obviously the system's built on bullshit. And then I mentioned the backlighting, as you could probably tell by the fact that I was talking. I was just talking about how it was kind of an accident that I got here to this moment of this. I was just trying to get the room a little bit brighter, but then all of a sudden, the backlighting, and then the contrast I thought was cool. So that's all I was saying. Anyways, I kind of feel like that was just a waste of my time. But anyways, this video will not be too long. Hopefully. I mean, my videos tend to be a little bit long sometimes, so this system is built on bullshit. So this is a very much like obvious, but I thought I'll do it in a little bit of a like that kind of way where I'm just kind of diminishing it to something very, very minimalistic, very dumb, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like saying systems built to oppress, in my mind, I'm just like, no, the system is built on bullshit. Because if I'm looking at it from the most broadest perspective that I can, it's more about, okay, well, everything comes from a certain space, So when it comes to the way the systems run and the way that everyone ends up, especially if you're ended up deep in the system, like whatever that may look like for you, because in many ways you can get lost into the system, this culture or whatever the fuck that people are raised in like countries like, well, pretty much any country with a flag, to be honest, because that means they colonized it. But anyways, um, what was I saying? I was talking about the fact that the system is built on bullshit, right? So if the products of the system, when you are constantly being subjected to it, specifically, like, let's say if you're growing up in this system and you're raised upon like around all the different things that this system entails, then essentially on like a broader scale, you were like, that's like the way the system tries to be your parent or like your caretaker, but on a larger scale. So they're trying to like play God in that kind of way, where you are like where you're raised in the system, and so therefore on like an esoteric level, they're pointing to that and being like, see, look, now we're God, we're able to like raise this whole collective up, as opposed to just raising one child or like a group of children. It's like a collective of children that they try to raise. But the thing is, if you look at the product, like at the end of the day, you can tell that the raising was not done well, because it takes a lot of people to actually exit from the system and get out of the system in order to realize that um it's like trash. I don't know if that even makes sense about what I was saying. I feel like I just added that word at the end there, but you guys get what I would be saying. I reckon. I reckon it'd be understandable. And when it comes to, see, now that made me lose my fucking train of thought. What the fuck? Anyways, I was just talking about how the system is built on bullshit. So at the end of the day, you just look at the fruits of its labor. And if all the people in the system who are raised by the system, especially growing up, like let's say a lot of people say like they grow up and they're like things are so exciting and things are so fulfilling and like things are so good when you're a kid, like certain things people will describe like holidays, but It's not just exclusive to that. And then as they get older, they start to be like, oh, I just lost that. Like, and then you got some people who didn't ever lose that, because a lot of people just get lost into the system. And so when you get lost into the system, you lose that uh, natural quality to yourself, that you had as a child, where you're able to just experience things and be, because they want everyone to be like in like a very, very robotic mentality. So it's going to stop you from being as much as you could be because it's built on bullshit, so it's built on like the product of whatever it presents, essentially. So the products that it's presenting is the people who constantly struggle and then end up like going through the system, going deep into the system, and then coming out and being like, fuck that, and doing a complete 180, you know. But then you've got other people who are still in the system and who will actually enjoy it. And yeah, at the end of the day, that shouldn't mean that we are all subject to that as one if a large chunk of us don't actually enjoy that. So yeah, at the end of the day, then people end up just kind of sticking to themselves and being isolated and separated from each other. You got so many different groups, and so they feel like that they can't trust others and they can't go out. But all of that stems from like what the system's built on. Because if it's like, how your parent is like your kid, and your kid is like your parent. You guys will have similar traits. Obviously, some will be different, but you'll have certain similar traits. So if you're raised by the system as like a greater form of a parent that they try to be, then you'll notice that, you tend to be like your parent until you start to like get out of that systematic mindset that you've been programmed into. Or if you were never in it in the first place, then, you will be able to be in a lot better space, and you'll notice yourself in a lot better of a mind state and a lot better of state of being, and the ability to be able to do a lot like more clearer, clairvoyant type shit, So that's why the system is just bullshit in general. And when it comes down to it, if it's constantly raising up people and beings and, states of awarenesses, even just beyond people, you know what I mean? Because if you even look at like where what their energy kind of involves is invading, and taking over different places on a physical sense and on a broader sense, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, everything like you see in the external is probably going to be manifested from that state of being, because we all create everything from the internal to the external. So if it's manifested from their state of being invasive, then that energy carries with it all those forms, those different states, and those different states that, or not states, but sorry, my bad. Those different, egos and bodies that it can take of being invasive, like invasive plants, invasive animals, so on and so forth. And those things all end up damaging the environment. So they all have something in common, so it shows you that, like, at the essence of each of these things, they're pretty much in that same energy of invading onto something and then damaging the environment and poisoning the environment that they're on. You know what I mean? So when they do that, and they're in that state of being, they're obviously going to raise people who want to do similar things, because you're raising people to be like them. If you're trying to be someone's parent and raise them up, you want them to at least be like you or be better than you. But also your idea of being better than them is still subjective to their own point of view, because everything's subjective then objective, so you're not going to be able to or most people, sorry, I won't say you're not, most people won't be able to pass that barrier of subjective to objective, because at the end of the day you can't really technically pass it, and I've talked about this in the past as well. So but yeah, when it comes to like how we're always self-reflecting is essentially the concept of that. So we're always going to be self-reflecting in some way, shape, or form. So when it comes down to like someone who's unaware, they're not even going to be aware of that first. And so they're not even going to be able to get past the first layer or the first level of, what's it called? Being subjective than objective. So they won't be able to pass their own subjective judgment and then reach to a more objective space, still from their subjective point of view. So, yeah, when it comes to like that, the government's only, or the shadow government, because at the end of the day, the government even are puppets, people in parliament, all of that kind of shit is bullshit. They just try to distract everyone, bring them towards one idea so that we can all get our energy siphoned and then talk about that shit, and give it all our power when we could be putting our awareness and our time into something a lot more beneficial in our life. Not just bullshit on the news that's going to lead you to like derailing mentally. So, yeah, just the whole system is bullshit is really what I wanted to say in this video. I mean, I can't really say it, I can't really put it, can't really pinpoint it really much simpler than that, but I'll put it in like a little bit more of like a relatable way, I guess, brought it kind of down, and then like sort of blended that spiritual side with that logical side too. So it was interesting, seeing that kind of play out with my actions, and then versing like, or comparing to my old videos, just seeing the differences and stuff like that. Because I'm very much into observing myself and making sure, looking at the situation and just saying, okay, well, what kind of energy am I in, and all that kind of stuff. And this is reminding me of that Scorpio kind of energy too, because we are in Scorpio moon right now. So when it comes to us being in Scorpio moon, that's going to be some like us reacting and responding to something in a deep kind of way. We're diving deep into something or transforming something, so, or having a deep desire and passion for something or something like that. So when it comes to that kind of energy, you can see it also displayed in yourself or others. People are going to be reacting, responding in deep kind of ways, or reacting to their deep desires and passions, or transforming something, going through some kind of transformation. You can go through a negative one or you can go through a positive one. So it depends on like where you're at mentally and physically. If you feel like you're like in a lower octave transformation where you're not really receiving a lot of benefits and stuff like that, you're feeling like you've got like, how do I say, a lot of downfalls going on, and you feel like you've got a lot of failures or mistakes or whatever the case may be, anything along those lines, then that might be a sign that you have like kind of transformed into something a little bit more on the lower octave side, versus the other side, feeling a lot like you're making a lot more strides and feeling a lot more better about your situation. Doesn't matter if your situations are trash or not, but how you're reacting and responding to them. That's what's going to be transformed at the root cause of it. And also like just change like power struggles and stuff like that, because it's the dark side of Mars. So it's going to be about like balancing the different sides of something essentially, and that goes back to that transformation. So yeah, I'm just like, bro, low key like doubt myself in those moments sometimes, because I'm sitting there and I'm talking about it, I'm like, is that even true? And then I got to think about it, and then I'm just like, yeah, I think that's pretty true. But anyways, who gives a shit? Because do you know what? I've noticed majority of the time it ends up being true anyway, in terms of like me saying shit and then just being like, oh, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? No doubt, no doubt, because that's just gonna lead me into a path of doubting myself even more, and then I'm just gonna manifest more and more of that situation, and I won't be able to get out of that state of being. So yeah, just interesting as well. Like, if you'll be able to see it in the other people in your life, and see how they are doing something in a deep way or transforming their reactions in some way, shape, or form. You know, so like could be someone that's like transforming their reactions, and one day they were like really really negative, and then the next day they were really really positive. Or it could be someone who's just like having a more subtle change, you know. But on the extreme side, that could be extremely good or extremely negative, probably. I'm assuming, because it's going extreme, and that's showing it imbalance in some way, shape, or form. But it also depends on that, because everything has a yin and yang to it at the end of the day. So some things you may be able to do, like that you need to fight fire with fire. You need to go against something. You like, for example, like putting it simply, if you're just having someone who's constantly at you all the time in a negative state of being, and you're just ignoring them, but it's not seeming to do anything, then you might need to, not ignore them. You might need to cuss them out or whatever the heck, or just be like, shut the fuck up, whatever it may be. So, that's the cases where, it depends. So you got to always just have that spiritual awareness and know what the difference is between the, you being in a negative situation, but it not necessarily being negative, and you being in a positive situation, but it might not necessarily be positive, you know, either or. Because that's how the government even got into the situation, shadow government, because they got lost into their mind state, thinking that like they were doing a positive thing, but like it was really negative. But they were just blinding themselves and trying to get in that delusion of like, oh well, yeah, this is okay, so we just try and justify it as best as we can. But at the end of the day, that's the only reason why feel like they have to prove so much and do so much to uphold their egos and their states of beings that they want to freaking use to shit all over everybody. So, yeah. Fuck the system, bitch. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that because it's about 20 minutes. That's a nice, cute, short video.